One of the key things we tried to get across to obviously people back in 2016 was that when Leave were talking about leaving the EU, it wasn't just the EU they were at that time we would be leaving. We could potentially be leaving a whole raft of other things, from information protection to what we'll be talking about today, protection of like food safety standards and regulation, environmental protection, worker rights protection. There was a whole raft of bodies that basically, because we were in the EU, every country sort of pulled together and funded those bodies. And one of our arguments was at that time, if you remember, look, if we leave the EU, how are we going to replicate these bodies? And as we said at the time, look, we've got probably a very right-wing government. The chances are of them replicating these bodies and funding them appropriately is very, very low. And even if they did, it's going to cost us even more money to have these bodies. But they will be important to have because we need them. But it's going to cost us more money. Something that, again, the Brexiteers said, oh, don't worry about it, because somehow the bodies that they will create will be cheaper and better. And of course, they throw out the buzzwords of efficiency and UK and sovereignty. And of course, we ended up very much where we are today. But of course, we have the watchdog sounding the alarm today over potentially dangerous food arriving in the UK. Why? Because, as we said, we would leave certain systems, and if we left those certain systems, that would leave us very, very much at the mercy of some of these dangerous substances. And unfortunately, that is what the government have done to us today. So before we go diving into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and an donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all the people who do help and support the channel that way. So off we go over to here. This comes from The Independent with the title of Brexit has increased the risk of dangerous foods reaching the UK. Watchdog warns. Are we surprised? No. We said this all the way going back to, again, 2016. They would have these problems. Again, Brexiteers said, oh, don't worry about it. No, we said, no, we should worry about it. They said, oh, no, that's just Project Fear. No, we've got serious questions. What are you going to do to do this? And again, we all know what happened. Again, this is why we ended up here today. So, Brexit has increased the risk of dangerous foods reaching the UK because inspections are shut out of the UK Rapid Alert System, ministers have warned today. The Food Standards Agency is still scrambling to build defences to compensate for the loss of data the National Audit Office has found, a task made far more difficult by the UK scrapping planned import checks. The regulator has admitted that it needs a 65% boost to its resources to deliver the same results achieved with the EU system, the report warns. Luckily, of course, Jacob Rees-Mogg just last week announced, well, we're going to cut around 90,000 civil service jobs. And at that time, you may remember the experts in those areas were saying, well, you don't understand. We have to increase the civil service because we've got more jobs to deal with now. We've got more tasks that we have to do. So if you're going to cut those civil servants, then the government now has to say, this is what we're no longer going to do. And again, yeah. What can you say? What can you say about this? So, in common with other regulators, Brexit has had a negative impact on their ability to assess the risks carried out with their work, the NHO concludes. Failure in food safety can have catastrophic consequences for human life, public confidence, and the wider economy and international trade, the watchdog points out. The chair of the Commons Public Accounts Committee highlighted the gap between the high-minded talk of the new Brexit freedoms and what it actually means in practice for regulation. The government must clearly light the way to prevent the regulators from fumbling around in the dark, Meg Hiller said. Until the UK left the EU, it was part of the Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed, or the RSFFA, or the RASFF. And that was allowing it to exchange information about food safety, ingredients, and responses all across the bloc. The FSA is now forced to try and mitigate the loss of information using other international systems, public available data, or just by setting up data sharing agreements on a case-by-case basis. So it's now having to do more work, meaning that it will have had to have hired more civil servants. And of course, you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg going, well, we're going to have to cut 90,000 civil servants. This would be funny if it wasn't, actually going to affect, as was said there, public health, confidence in the government, our international trade regulations and reputation. It has all these kinds of consequences. And of course, the Brexiteers just don't care. Again, high-minded talk of, Brexit freedoms, we're going to have the highest standards anywhere else. You certainly haven't set the way out for doing that. However, these are at an early stage, and there is a risk that it may have had less information about food fraud risks, the body told the inquiry. The problem mirrors the loss of the instant alerts of suspected terrorists and other organised criminals. Full controls of the imports from the EU were seen as part of the post-Brexit defences, but the government has abandoned them over fears of fears of adding to the cost of living crisis. Vets have also warned that the move is opening the door to diseases such as the African swine fever and will wreak havoc on disease prevention. The UK and the EU intend to try and begin talks on the voluntary regulatory cooperation, such as an exchange of information on goods and regulatory practices. However, little progress has been made due in part to the battle between the two sides of the Northern Ireland Protocol. A regulatory cooperations committee has met only once and will only meet once a year in the future. Again, we've said this before, doesn't matter what this government does, a lot of these problems will be faced only if we have closer cooperation with the EU. And unless we have that close cooperation, we're going to be facing lots of problems just like this and what they've been mentioned with the vets. And then, if you're having that close cooperation, of course, this is why the Brexiteers don't want to do it, because if you're having that close cooperation, well, shouldn't we be in the customs union then? Shouldn't we be in the single market then? And then, shouldn't we just be, full members of the European Union? Again, the more and more you recognize the fact that we need to have this close cooperation with the EU, the less and less and less sense Brexit actually makes. The NAO's warning comes following a salmonella scare, which has been seen more than 100 products containing cooked chicken removed from sale by major suppliers. Canswick Country Foods said that they were included in sandwiches and wraps sold at Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Aldi, the Co-op, Pret a Manger, and of course Marks and Spencer. So as you can see, that was very, very worrying. Having that potential amount of salmonella, that could have killed a lot of people. That could have killed people, or at least caused serious injury to their health. In its evidence, the FSA has said that it has struck a data sharing deal in December of 2021 with HMRC to increase its intelligence on the imports from the EU of high-risk food and feed. In time, it expects these new data sources to enhance in its ability to identify food safety risks, but it is in its early stage in embedding their use, the NAO stated. Gareth Dennis, head of the watchdog, said that the EU exit has had a major impact on many UK regulators. They need to overcome many challenges if they are to manage the transition successfully, including recruiting the right specialist skills. A spokesperson for the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy said, we will ensure that our regulators are fit for purpose and are working effectively as possible. You know that's not going to happen at all because, as we've said, we've just seen not only do you have Jacob Rees-Mogg cutting at least 90,000 civil servants' jobs, you also have the fact that we have seen no increase in money going to these regulators because we've left these organizations. They've lost systems. They've lost, people. They've lost all kinds of stuff that they used to have access to. And they are struggling and they need money to be able to do these things. But we have seen a government that, as we have said before, is completely anti-regulation on many of these areas. So they aren't going to get any money. If anything, we can only probably suspect that they will get cuts, at least certainly later down the line, which again will cause huge, huge problems. But of course, that's Brexit. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and our up-to-date link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.